Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome to this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you come to the right place. Oh, man, folks, we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk with Mark Walters from Armed American Radio, syndicated radio show, one of the biggest in the country as far as guns and Second Amendment goes. Mark's going to give us the analysis on the national level for what happened during the last elections. You know, what is in store for gun owners for at least the next 2 years at the national level. As you recall, last week, Joel Fulton, he talked to us about Michigan and what's going to be happening to us here. Now we're going to go to the national level with Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. But before we do that, I have got two tiny little special guests. They look like little tiny elf creatures. Amethyst Coryell, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you.
All right, Amethyst. Hey, we did something fun today. You and me and your brother Phoenix. What did we do tonight?
We went hunting.
Hunting. And what were we trying to hunt for?
Deer.
Deer, that's right. We were setting in a tent, and boy, was it warm enough for you inside that tent?
Yeah, it was kind of hot.
It was kind of hot. Well, we did have a big heater there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And what did you and Phoenix do while we were hunting?
We played video games.
You played video games on Daddy's iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shall we do it again later this week?
Uh-huh.
Only, yeah, this time we should have more chocolate and candy and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll talk to your mom about that. We'll see if we can get that okayed, all right? All right, now, hey, let's get Phoenix up here. 9-year-old Phoenix Coryell. Phoenix, you went hunting tonight. So how many deer did we see tonight?
I don't know.
We didn't see any deer, and even if they'd come, I don't think you would have seen them because you were playing video games, Phoenix.
So was Amethyst.
Well, I know Amethyst was too. Yeah, so Phoenix, what video game were you playing tonight?
Ball Blast.
Ball Blast, and you had a good time? Did you have a blast playing Ball Blast?
Uh-huh.
All right, now, Phoenix, you complained while we were out there. You said there wasn't enough what?
Food.
That's right. You wanted more sandwiches, and maybe we'll bring some cookies out there, hot chocolate, and we'll just have like a deer hunting party. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I believe you guys are watching a movie inside, so why don't you both head on back inside? But thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. Love you, kids. Close the door behind you, okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Love you.
All right. And that, folks, is why I am living the American dream. I have a family that loves me, and they're proud of me, and I love them, and hey, it's just a big old love fest over here at the Home Defense Show with my family. When I take my kids out hunting, you know, Amethyst is 7, Phoenix just turned 9, and I gotta tell you, let me give you some pointers, all right? First off, it's vitally important that you take your kids hunting, because if you don't, by the time they're age 8, man, you're going to lose them. You'll lose them to video games, violent video games, to trashy movies, all kinds of crap out there that's going on. You've got to get them in good, wholesome stuff, and you have to do it as well. Now, let me be honest with you. I do not see very many deer when the kids are with me. I mean, the only way I'm going to see a deer when I have my kids with me is if they're one of those Helen Keller deers. They're deaf, dumb, and blind. Because these kids make a lot of noise. I mean, they enjoy being out there, and we're making very good memories for them. But they just wiggle. They scoot around. Amethyst was sticking her head out the window looking around for deer. And then she got the idea, we could just take corn and food, sandwiches, and throw them out the window, and the deer would come up and eat the food. And that's not the way that it works. And then when they get a hold of a grunt tube, oh gosh, it's Katie bar the door. There probably wasn't a deer for, a county around because they heard my kids out there grunting on that grunt tube and making noise and talking to each other. I did my best to keep them quiet, but you know what? We were out there for about an hour and a half, and I finally said, you know what? It's time for me to take them back inside. Because this is right about the time where the deer come. And I didn't want my kids out there when the deer were out there too. But they had a good time. And we will do it again. I think I'll take them out earlier in the day next time. Because, I'm sure it would be more fun if they saw deer. But until they get a little older, they just need to go out there and associate hunting with Dad with having fun and building good, clean memories. So, the mission was a complete and utter success. Speaking of success, I was out there opening day of the Michigan gun deer season. I didn't see a single deer all opening day. I couldn't hunt the next day, but then the day after that, I got out there in the morning and boy, I had a 3-point buck come in. That's an odd number, 3-point buck. And I've had such a terrible season. I've missed a 6-point. 6-point come up earlier in the season, 15 feet away from me. And I come up with my crossbow. I'm ready to shoot it. And then my phone rings. I had forgot to turn my phone off. So, hey, that one's on me. I screwed up. The second chance, a couple of weeks ago with my crossbow again, I've got a big 8-point buck, 20 yards standing broadside with his nose in a scrape, waiting for me to shoot him. And so I pull up my crossbow. I've got the crosshairs on, and this is a dead deer. All I got to do is press the trigger. I press the trigger. I was too close to the tree, and the right limb of my crossbow hit a 2-inch branch and just threw the shot about 10, 15 feet off. I never did find the crossbow bolt. Those things are about $40 a piece. But hey, you win some, you lose some. And I've been losing a lot this year, not seeing a lot of deer. But hey, I just feel like my luck is about to change, and I am going to shoot at least one more deer. I'll be out there again in the morning, and I got to shoot either a big doe or a big buck, and then I will have enough meat to get us through the winter. I need 3 deer to feed my 5 family members through the winter and into the spring. And after that, we'll be okay. What do we have in the news now? Let's segue into that. Okay, let's head on over to bearingarms.com. I saw an article here that caught my interest. It says, convenience store chain wants to hire armed guards. Picture there has a big QT on it. That stands for Quick Trip. Quick Trip is one of my favorite convenience stores, even though we don't have any of those in Michigan. But every time we go over to Wisconsin to visit my 6 grandkids there and my daughter and son-in-law, we go to the Quick Trip because, man, when you're talking about convenience store junk food, they've got some really good junk food there. Hot dogs and pizzas and, chili, you name it. All that stuff that gives you indigestion, but it tastes really good. They've got it at Quick Trip. So that's what I love going to Quick Trip. They even have cheese curds, usually several different flavors. So it says working in a convenience store has to be nerve-wracking. I mean, the news is filled daily with stories of these places being robbed, and of course that's why we call them stop and robs. All too often the result of that robbery is a dead clerk. To make matters worse, many clerks who would prefer to carry a firearm for their protection are barred from doing so by store policy. That means either risking their job or their life. I know which one I would risk. One convenience store chain has decided to start putting armed guards in their stores. News of Quick Trip looking to hire armed clerks, a hybrid position between a protective services agent and a store clerk, appears to have generated a lot of inquiries, though some may be confused about what specific experience the position requires. A spokesperson for the company said he was confident they've had probably pretty significant inquiries after advertising the position, which Quick Trip is looking to staff with certified peace officers, veterans, or armed security guards. It's just kind of natural for us, said Mike Thornburg, a Quick Trip spokesman. We tend to bring things inside if we think it works. Quick Trip has been testing the hybrid employee program for 6 months at a few locations in Wichita. There are visual cues that make it easy to differentiate between regular Quick Trip workers and the hybrid employees who are armed, according to a previous story. According to a job description, the purpose of the hybrid employee's role is to deter illegal activity, theft, and vandalism, as well as protect employees, customers, visitors, and the company's property. All that will be in addition to the regular day-to-day activities comprising a clerk's duty. This is an extension of what we're already doing, Thornburg said. What I mean by that is we utilize off-duty law enforcement, and we have contractual agreements with security companies to provide assistance. All we're doing is hiring some individuals to perform the same work who are going to be full-time employees. That's it. You know what? I think that's probably a good idea. These are the places that are targeted. They're seen as soft targets. So I'm guessing what you're going to see over the next couple of years, you will see armed robberies at Quick Trips go down. Because, hey, why take a chance on losing your life for a couple $100 from a till? So they will go for the soft targets. They'll go for some other stop and rob. Good idea. All right, well, you know what? We went long in the first segment, so that's all the news we can handle today. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with Mark Walters, host of the syndicated Second Amendment radio show, Armed American Radio. Mark is a good friend, insightful, intelligent. Man, all you got to do is wind him up, let him go, and he tells you everything you need to know about the Second Amendment and news that's going on all over the country. But before then, we've got a 2-minute break. I want you to go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, see how they can help protect you in the legal arena, and then go to elitefirearms.us. I was just speaking with Larry Jackson, and he was telling me about some of the new M&P shields with laser grips that he just got in. So you can check that out at elitefirearms.us. When we come back, Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, is going to tell us everything we need to know what happened to gun owners in the last election. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Siege Coryell. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlines-of-freedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We have a special guest today. His name is Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. Mark, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Always a pleasure, Skip. Thanks for having me.
Well, Mark, I love it when I get to have you on the show because, you know, quite frankly, you do this full time. This is kind of a hobby for me. I'm a part-time, radio guy. But you are so up on, everything at the national level, and I am not. And I know my listeners would really appreciate hearing about these last elections. But before we get into that, tell people how they can get a hold of Mark Walters and Armed American Radio and all the things that you do.
Yeah, well, I can be found at armedamericanradio.com. One of the easiest ways to get to me and get a message to me, if you'd like, is Twitter at AARMark. I can be emailed at mark@armedamericanradio.org. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/armedamericanradio. Pretty much Google Armed American Radio and my name, and you're going to find everything you need to know about me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Once that stuff's out there, it's hard to get rid of it, and some of it's actually true.
It is. Yeah, some of it is. I just won't tell you what parts.
Okay, good enough. Leave us in suspense. All right, Mark. We had an election, and, it was, I'm a little bummed about it, because here in Michigan, we took quite a shellacking. The anti-gunners, they took over the governor's house, the governor's mansion. They took over Secretary of State's office and Attorney General's office, and we lost some House seats. So for here in Michigan, it's not looking that great. But I know you've got your finger on the pulse of the whole country, and I'm hoping you could give us kind of a recap. What actually happened to gun owners in the last election?
Oh, boy. Let's start with Michigan, if I could.
Sure.
In Michigan, it's interesting. I don't know if you've looked at the election map, the electoral map in Michigan, but only 2 counties in the UP went blue. Only 2. Mm-hmm. And downstate, only 13 went blue. That was Grand Rapids, Lansing, Ann Arbor, and Detroit. And you had a pocket of 3 other counties, and one I don't know which one's out by, I believe it's out by Wampler's Lake out there. But you only had 13 counties go blue in Lower Michigan, and only 2 counties in the UP. And when you look at the map, the entire state of Michigan is bright red, except for those little pockets. Those little pockets determined the outcome and gave you a Democrat governor and Debbie Stabenow. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good thing when it comes to gun owners, and here's why. Because you can't, and I don't care what they say, forget what any Democrat tells you when it comes to guns. Not one Democrat anywhere at any level of government can be trusted with your guns. Not one. I don't care what they say. Understand that to be the case. You got to know that going in. But, Michigan falls into that same type deal where Washington State, for example. Washington State, believe it or not, is very conservative. Washington State just passed Initiative 1639, one of the worst gun control ballot initiatives ever. In fact, it was the worst ever. Okay, but if you look at the map, Washington's red. Seattle, King County, predominantly. Olympia, Tacoma, the little tiny metropolitan pockets pull the elections out.
Yeah.
What has to happen on a federal level is we've got to get boots on the ground. The Republicans have got to go into Detroit. They've got to get into Lansing. They've got to get into Grand Rapids. They've got to start knocking on doors in cities and taking these strongholds back. That's what has to happen. It is a real shame when you look at the map of the state of Michigan and see a bright red state now being choked and held hostage by a certain group of urban voters in that state. It's despicable. The entire upper, as you know, you live in Michigan, up north, is now being controlled by Democrats. There's only one county up there that went blue, and that was up by Torch Lake, unfortunately, which would be Traverse City area, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening on the Michigan level. It's a real shame. So you're going to have to make a lot of noise in Michigan. during the legislative sessions, the upcoming legislative sessions. You're going to have to let now she's going to do the marching. She's going to take marching orders from Bloomberg and the rest of them. That's where she's going to be taking her money from. Yeah. So expect to see in Michigan all calls for positive, common sense, gun safety reform. That's coming to you because you elected a Democrat and elections have consequences. On a federal level, what happened to gun owners? Oh, boy, that's a loaded question, pun intended. A lot. Not all bad, believe it or not. But the perception, which tends to be reality, is going to be that, and in this case it is reality. Let me put it this way. We're now on defense.
Yeah.
Gun rights supporters, gun owners, and activists are now on 100% defense. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
We've lost the lead. Now, it gets so deep because when we lost the House of Representatives, that was expected. My predictions went as follows. I predicted live on air that we would hold the House, maybe even pick up 4 or 5 seats. I predicted a pickup of 2 to 3 seats in the Senate. I predicted Florida would turn red as far as governor. I predicted, and it did, stay red in the governor's mansion. I predicted that Nelson would be defeated, that Gillum would be defeated, and that happened. Then in Georgia, I predicted Kemp's victory over Stacey Abrams. So overall, I didn't do too bad, except for the House. And I think maybe I allowed a little bit of my wishful thinking to permeate my, I guess my desire. But nonetheless, it was not unexpected to lose the House in a midterm election. It happens. If you remember, Barack Obama lost 94 seats, and he had to stand up in front of the nation and say, we got shellacked. And he looked like a whipped puppy dog when he did it. He looked tired because he took a beating. We didn't get beat that bad. The House is winnable for us in 2020. Here's what's getting ready to happen. Because we've lost the offensive posture, we are now playing defense against not just the Democrats in charge of the committees, and I'm calling this the clown posse because that's what it is. All you've got to do is look at the incoming, Jerry Nadler, clown posse. Maxine Waters, are you kidding me? I can't even say what I want to say about her, lest I get you thrown off the airwaves.
Right.
Clown posse. Nancy Pelosi, are you kidding me? Clown posse on steroids. Okay? That's what you're getting ready to see. These people are controlling, they're chairing the committees now. It's a joke. And you're going to start seeing calls for common sense gun safety reform from all Democrats in the House. There's going to be some crazy legislation put up. H.R. 7115 has already been put up and already has 12 sponsors. All Democrats, of course. They'll never get a Republican to sign on to this legislation. But it's an assault weapons. It's technically it's referred to as a 3D printing ban. But they're going after AR-15s. No more. You can no longer buy a lower. You can no longer build. You can no longer create a firearm. You simply can't. So they're already started, and the media is going to pick up their ball and run with it. Hence becomes the perception, becomes reality. Because unfortunately, there are too many stupid Americans who are going to watch that or read that or see that and think, oh, well, of course we've got to do something. That's common sense. Will it move in the Senate? No. Will President Trump sign it? Absolutely not. So what are you worried about? Well, what we're worried about more than anything else is they're building on this for 2020. Excuse me, number one. And number two is bits and pieces of that legislation get attached to bills that has to be signed by Trump. Example, an infrastructure bill. And it's got some, banning 18 to 21-year-olds at the federal level, for example, attached to it. And Trump would have no choice but to sign it via procedural moves that can be made. Don't think that can happen? Let me remind you that Barack Obama signed, I believe it was a budget bill, not long after taking office, that expanded our right to carry in national parks.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, okay. I was surprised.
So, yes, those are our biggest. We had to. It was attached to another bill that had to be signed. So these are the type of procedural shenanigans we're getting ready to see. But worse than anything else is going to be the outright chiming in from the mainstream media and the screaming and yelling. I mean, remember, this is a group of clown posses that sat around and took over the House of Representatives by sitting on the floor, screaming for more gun control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you've got the looks of Elijah Cummings in here running his mouth. These people hate your freedoms and they hate your rights. But on the brighter side, we are controlling now with an even larger majority in the Senate the judicial appointments and nominations from Donald Trump that are going to radically change the nation's courts in favor of gun rights. Trump has record number of judges that are moving through that chamber, and they will continue to move through that chamber during this lame duck session. Now, it doesn't matter that it's lame duck because they hold the House after the Senate, after January anyway. But the judges, the lower court judges, the federal levels, these are lifetime appointments, and Trump knows it. So he's going to make a huge legacy impact in a pro-gun way in our courts, and that will change the way some of these cases come and what cases we can even file down the road. So it's a big deal. So it's not all bad.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it sounds a lot like basically the analysis we had last week on Michigan. Basically, where gun owners will be playing defense legislatively and, in the courts, and we just have to hold on until something changes down the road. What is likely to change down the road?
Well, we need a new election. And
okay.
We need to get, let me give you an example. Here in the state of Georgia, Stacey Abrams was entitled to win the election. Why? Because she's black and because she's female and because she's a Democrat. She's righteous. Everybody else be damned. Just like Hillary Clinton, she didn't expect to lose the election. Why? Because she was told it was never going to be lost. Don't worry, we're going to win the election. She was told. She lives in a bubble. She hangs around Fulton County, Atlanta, where everybody that surrounds her is voting for her. The rest of the state is as red as the day is long. Mm-hmm. I knew then there's no way she was going to be elected. Well, how'd she get so close? She didn't get close. She lost by 60,000 votes. That's 10,000 people times 6. Mm-hmm. The media portrays it as razor-thin margin. No, a razor-thin margin is 574 votes for president between Gore and Bush out of a country of 310 million people at the time. That's razor-thin. 60,000 votes is 60,000 votes. I don't care that it was 1.9 percentage points. It's 60,000 votes. She never held the lead in the state of Georgia, not once. Not one count anywhere throughout the entire election process showed her leading ever. Not one. She failed to concede, even though she lost by over 60,000 votes. She couldn't even find, and they were trying to find them, okay, enough votes to kick off a recount, which she needed 17,800, and she couldn't even do that. So with absolutely no dignity and no grace and no poise, she stood up there and said, she is not viewing Kemp as the actual winner of the election. And this is a preview into what we're going to see into 2020. This is the game plan that they're using. Believe me, she's being told to do this. She's not doing this on her own, okay? So the reason I set that up for that is this. There are 7.9 registered voters in the state of Georgia. Record turnout for the gubernatorial election, 3.9 million votes. Half of Georgians didn't even come to the polls.
Wow.
So when I say we need new elections, we need to get that other 3.9 million or 3.1 million in this case to the damn polls.
Yeah.
Because I can promise you that a large percentage of them in this state were gun owners.
Yeah.
Who, for whatever reason, felt it not necessary to vote against an avowed gun-grabbing socialist who wanted to take over this state. So that's what I say when we need another election. We've got to get more people out to pull the lever, or clean those voter rolls up to find out if that number is even accurate.
Yeah.
Which is what Brian Kemp was doing as Secretary of State, which is what she claimed made him an illegitimate governor because he was secretary. So I guess in the Democrats' eyes, if I lose, you cheat. And that's the same, and that's very true. That's very true. And that's the same as saying the Democrats, their perception is, for example, here's another analogy. Compromise to a Democrat simply means agree with me or the hell with you.
Yes. You're right. You're right.
And we've seen that for decades. We've seen the Republicans try to compromise with the Democrats, and they get walked on. And as Republicans, we sit there and we go, what the hell are they doing? Because the Democrats play for blood. The ends justify the means. Laws be damned. They will walk around laws, step on laws, because they don't apply to them, because they feel this elite, virtuous sense of entitlement and righteousness, because their cause is so good that everybody else be damned. Everybody else is an enemy, and they will stop at absolutely nothing. And what you saw in Georgia, by the way, was just a great preview of what you're going to see coming up in 2020. And I have to say this about Gillum down in Florida. Gillum conceded. Gillum was separated by 10,000 votes. Not the 60,000 that Stacey Abrams was separated by, but Gillum was separated by 10,000 votes. He stood up in front of the cameras with a picturesque Florida backdrop behind him, and he said, hey, I lost. There were 4.5 million Floridians who voted against me in this election. And to them I say, congratulations, and I've got work to do to find out why that happened. And I want to wish incoming Governor DeSantis all of the luck in the world and congratulate him on a great and hard-fought victory. It was a hard-fought campaign, and I congratulate him, and I wish him well. He did that with class, dignity, poise, and stood up in front of the people of Florida and the nation and said that. Yeah. And Stacey Abrams won't even acknowledge Brian Kemp as her governor. It's a disgrace, but it's a taste of what you're going to see, because I'm telling you, those are marching orders. That's not coming from Stacey Abrams. She's not smart enough to figure out how to do that on her own.
Oh, Mark, we're out of time for this segment, but when we come back, I want to delve a little bit deeper into that. What's going to happen at the 2020? What can we expect? That kind of thing. But as always, you have been awesome in your analysis and insightful. So we're going to take a little 2-minute break here while we're away. Go ahead and check out Armed American Radio with Mark Walters. Then check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, and then elitefirearms.us. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking with Armed American Radio host Mark Walters. Mark, one thing I was thinking about over the break is 2 years ago when Trump came into office, we had high hopes for national reciprocity, and for whatever reason, it just never happened. is it fair to say that it's not going to happen for a while?
Well, let me rephrase that. It did happen. It passed the House, right? It got out of the House. It's languishing in the Senate where McConnell has not moved it. We're in a lame duck session right now over in the House. McConnell can still move that bill while the Republicans still control the House.
Oh.
He can pass that bill. He can get it over to the House for reconciliation. They can put a bill on Trump's desk during this lame duck session. It's already written. It's already passed out of the House, and it's sitting in the Senate now. I don't know if it's going to move. I don't have any idea why it wouldn't. But again, it shows you where we rank as gun owners when it comes to a whole lot of talk and no action. I got to give Paul Ryan at least some credit for getting that thing out of the House. Okay, good riddance to him when he leaves. No harm there. They'll get rid of him. Just another swamp rhino, going venturing out back into the dark where they belong. But nonetheless, McConnell has done some great things, by the way, over the last year and a half with Trump in office. He's realized Trump's the president, and he's moved some mountains over there in the Senate. I got to give McConnell. I've never been a big Mitch McConnell fan. In fact, I've gone as far as saying, look at his face. Is that the guy that's the future of the party? Okay, future of conservatism? No. They're all swamp creatures, but at the same time, he's done a pretty good job over there in the Senate on a number of issues, particularly moving judges, and that's a key. That is critical. And I know Trump would say the same thing about it. But so national reciprocity is languishing in the Senate. My suggestion is get off your duffs, contact your senators, and let them know. Move that bill during the lame duck session, because we actually could get that through. And it'd almost be a stick in the eye for the Republicans to push that through during a lame duck session, wouldn't it? I think so. But there's a lot of procedural things that go into play with that, too, that I'm unaware of, so I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess from my point of view, just, Johnny Cupcake out on the street, it's like, what do you have to lose? I mean, go ahead and send it to Trump's desk. I mean, it might be the last bone you throw gun owners for 2, 4, 8 years. Who knows?
And I'm glad you said that, because we can segue right into where we should go next. And that is, I think you asked it in the previous segment, what can we expect? Nothing. Yeah. Regarding the negativity that you're going to see coming from the loudmouth gun stompers, who, by the way, I want listeners, listen to this and take away from this. This is not all bad. Here's why. You've heard of the emperor have no clothes, right? And it's kind of a difficult visual, but all those Democrats are going to expose themselves over the next 24 months as we lead into 2020. All of America is going to get a taste of what the Democrats want to do to this country. And they're going to see them stomp their feet, scream racism, yell, scream, and do what Democrats do when they don't get their way, because they're not going to get their way in the House. They don't control the other two branches of government. Or as Ocasio-Cortez, the incoming socialist, would say, the other two chambers of government. You got to wonder who pulls the lever for these people. I mean, who pulls the lever for Maxine Waters year after year after year? I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah. But I digress. So it's not all that they're going to expose themselves. And you're going to see, America's going to get a huge glimpse of the two differences. Do you want that crazy stuff, or do you want this? So America's going to see it, and America's going to make a decision in 2020, all right? Number one. Now let's go to gun rights. Again, I'm going to go back to Georgia as an example, because in this state is now going to become, the state of Georgia, where I am, is going to become the envy of the other 49 states when it comes to moving gun rights forward. Georgia is going to advance gun legislation in this state like you've never seen before. Kemp ran in Georgia, carrying guns in his ads. Kemp spoke to GeorgiaCarry.org. Kemp came to the Georgia Carry Convention to thank Georgia Carry for their support. We have tremendous support in the state of Georgia, and we have a true ally in the governor's mansion now in Brian Kemp. If what had happened if Stacey Abrams won to gun owners? Nothing. She would have stomped her feet, made a bunch of noise, and then blamed the Republicans for not moving anything. In other words, our forward momentum would have just stalled for 4 years. Now we're getting ready to go on a roll. The rest of the country, when you're talking the federal level now, is stalled for 2 more years. Not that we expected to move any pro-gun legislation out of the House anyway. We just know now we can guarantee it's not going to happen. So our forward momentum legislatively comes to a grinding halt. You're going to see a ton of investigations. You're going to see a ton of screaming about guns. You're going to see every town for gun safety get tons of publicity because their allies are controlling the committees in Washington. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're going to have to brace for that, okay? My advice to you is shut it off. Turn it off. You do not need to have your face in Fox News or any other so-called news outlet for the next 2 years because it's available to you 24/7. When you turn the notifications off on your phone. All you're doing is hearing the same garbage over and over and over again. It's bad for the soul. It's bad for your health. It's bad for your psyche, just like it is for the nations. You have the ability today to go read the news from sources you want to go to at your own time, like when you get home from work. Sit down and read some news if you want to. Get your face out of this 24-hour news cycle. Once you start to see the thing loop again, cut it off, and you won't have to hear it. You and me and others will do the lifting for them and bring them the information that they need.
Yeah.
So it also might be a good time to consider buying some gun stocks again, too, if you don't have any in a portfolio, because I'm feeling sales are going to go through the roof again.
Well, Mark, I think a good idea over the next 2 years is to catch up on all the back episodes of Armed American Radio and the Home Defense Show. I mean, that'll keep you busy for a while, right?
Yeah, it definitely will, man. Look, we've got some great guests coming in, that talk about this stuff. I had Steve Bannon on the show 2 weeks ago, the Sunday before the election on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I had Steve Bannon on. He was fantastic. Last night I had Joe Biggs on, combat veteran Joe Biggs, who went toe-to-toe with that dopey moron, Representative Eric Swalwell out of California, who claimed he would nuke gun owners because in a tweet, when somebody reminded Swalwell that our right to bear arms is in case we ever have to, fight a government, as we've had to do before. He goes, let me inform you, we've got the nukes. It'll be a short war. Wow, really, dude? Really, Mr. Representative? You just said that? Had a Republican said something similar to that, oh, my gosh, I mean, it was, are you kidding me? But he gets a pass because he's a Democrat. Well, he got called out on it. And Joe Biggs, who was the one that called him out on it and got into a little Twitter-fueled fight with him, was on the show with me last night. So that was a tremendous amount of fun. But no shortage of guests to be talking this through over the next 2 years. We're here for you. We got your back. It's what we do. But really, my recommendation, put the phones down, man. Turn off the notifications. Quit watching this crap. And if I might, if we have just a couple seconds, I'll give you a real-life example. Mm-hmm. My mother and father have property down in Naples, Florida. They live in Georgia as well. They're predominantly Florida. And when they're down there over the wintertime, I'll give them a call day to day. And they also go back in October for a month to get it ready to move back into. And I'll call them every day. Morning, how you doing? After I drop my daughter off at school, and my dad won't inevitably said, well, just getting up. I said, what are you guys doing today? He says, well, I don't know. We're just drinking some coffee and watching the news. I said, what are you watching? He said, Fox and Friends. I said, you're not watching the news. That's not news. You're watching three people sit on a curvy couch and tell you what they think. Mm-hmm. That's not news. In fact, Dad, if you recall, every 15 minutes they go to a real pretty girl in a short skirt who stands next to the couch and gives you 15 minutes. Let's cut over to so-and-so for some news. Yeah. If that's news, then they don't need to do that. They're sitting on the couch giving you opinion. And here's something else for you. When you hear a reporter or an anchor or anybody on a quote-unquote news channel say these two words, I think, you're not getting news. You're getting opinion. Yeah. So the best way to avoid this is to just shut it off. Yeah. You have in your pocket the means available to you to go to get at the sources. If you want to go to the New York Times and see the front page, you can do that. If you want to go to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution because you want to, read a bunch of liberal crap like you do at New York Times, you can do that. But you can do it on your own time, maybe while you're eating lunch or whatever you want to do, and you just turn the stuff off. It's the same droning mess all day long, and it's doing terrible, terrible damage to the psyche of the nation. I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So where does Mark Walters go for his news sources?
Oh my gosh, I go everywhere only because I've got to look at so many different angles of things when it comes to, what I'm talking about on the radio. But I'll be honest with you, my television right now inside the studio where I am right now is on One American News.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, my neighbor listens to that one. Yeah.
If you've got One American News, it's a great place to go because you get a conservative ideal but it's basically just news. They're just reporting stories throughout the day. So-and-so did this. The migrant caravan is in Tijuana. The Mexican mayor did this, or whatever the case may be. But it's from a conservative bent. I can't sit and watch CNN anymore. I mean, I've tried. But I have tons and tons and tons of alerts, Skip, that come into me that I can't keep track of. I probably get 2,000 or 3,000, Google alerts, and I have keywords set up for things that I want to talk about during the day. But, I'll watch Fox, but only briefly. I can't stomach any of it anymore. Yeah. I go to where I need to go to get it on my own, and I can no longer keep a channel running continuously unless I just go absolutely berserk and insane. Yeah.
Well, here at the Coryell household, we don't even have TV coming into our house. We don't have cable or dish or anything like that. I get all my news from, people like you and people who send me stuff and, all online stuff. I do have to dig for it a little bit, but I just found, if I've got, like a 24-hour news channel on there, it affects who I am.
Well, of course it does.
It's just so negative all the time. But
well, it is. It's 24-hour negativity, and I can pin this back. And I've been right about this for the last decade. And I defy anybody to prove me wrong. But when you take a media, which is largely progressive leftist propaganda machine now, okay, and you combine that with a 24-hour, the ability to propagandize for 24 hours on various mediums, phones, TVs, internets, computers, laptops, iPads, watches, whatever the case it is, you're doing tremendous. You have the ability to cause deep division in the country. Oh, wait, we are deeply divided. How did we get that way? We got that way because of what we watch and see 24/7. Well, it's never been this bad in America. My dad reminds me, well, it has. It was pretty bad in the 60s. Yeah. And I said, yeah, except the 60s didn't have 24-hour a day internet. Imagine the 60s with the technology we have today.
Oh, gosh.
It would have been far worse than it was.
Yeah.
So I submit to you that, no, the 60s were not. We are at a place in America today that we've never been, and there's one of two things that have to happen in this country. One of us has to win. Mm-hmm. The other has to lose. This is a culture war. Yeah. And as conservatives, we've watched and we've lost our pop culture. We've lost music and we've lost movies. We never had movies. Really? Go back and watch some of the movies. They wouldn't even show a woman's skirt.
That's right. Yeah.
Go back prior to the 50s. Go back into the 50s. Hollywood was fairly conservative. Yeah. It was the 60s that changed all that. Mm-hmm. But we've lost Hollywood. We've lost pop music and that part of our culture. All right? We've lost the institutions of higher learning in this country, are now leftist propaganda, and we've lost, in large part, unfortunately, or are losing, even still, our K through 12 schools. Mm-hmm. Depending on what areas of the country you're in, predominantly in that respect. We've also lost the media. The media is all leftist now. And don't for one second think that the party who subscribes to the ideology that is now infected all of those institutions in our culture, don't think for one second it's coincidence that it's that party that wants your firearms.
Yeah.
Once they have your firearms, they have the culture. And they know it. That's why they lie about who they are. It's why they lie about what they call themselves. And it's why they're trying to silence me and silence you. It's why the New York Times left out of its story about the racist murderer at the Kroger in Kentucky. The New York Times left out the fact that he was engaged by an armed citizen in a shootout that led to his arrest. Yeah. They left it out of the story completely. All they said was a bystander told the Times that he said to him, the killer said to the bystander, "Whites don't shoot whites." That's all they said. What they left out was he said that after he had a gun pointed in his face, and then was led into a shootout and took off in fear for his life because he was being shot at by a lawfully concealed carry permit holder in Kentucky that was responsible for him being caught right down the road. The New York Times didn't feel a shootout was newsworthy. That is a lie of omission, and I refer to that as thought thievery.
Yeah.
Skip. The New York Times stole the ability for millions of people who read that to think for themselves and make a decision. They didn't even want you to see that.
Yeah.
That's how dangerous we are today. That's how dangerous we've become, and it's bad. And unfortunately, it isn't going to get better. Those people in a hate-filled internet universe, Twitter and all the other social media garbage that are out there, are not just going to put their pens down or put their keyboards down, grab hands with everybody. This country's not going to just hold hands and start singing Kumbaya anytime soon.
Right.
One side must be defeated. You better hope yours is the side that comes out the victor, and that the socialist ideology is defeated, or this country's in big trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Mark, I agree. We're about out of time here, Mark. But go ahead, give us a synopsis here. What the upside and what is the downside over the next 2 years?
The upside is the Democrats are going to expose themselves. So the country and the world is going to see what these crazy lunatic clown posse clowns are all about. And I think that will help us come to grips with 2020. On the other hand, the Democrats have shown a propensity and a willingness to get violent. They've shown a propensity and a willingness to steal elections. Stacey Abrams won't even concede, and she lost by tens and tens and tens of thousands of votes. You got a glimpse into what's coming. We hold the Senate, and Trump is in the White House. Now we have to go to the polls and re-secure the House and secure victory in state houses across the country in the 2020 elections and beyond. It is imperative that 3.1 million people who didn't vote in Georgia, for example, vote.
Yeah.
We have to get those people to the polls, and we've got to do a better job of getting into the inner city. And, it's interesting. We should. More blacks voted for Trump, more Hispanics voted for Trump than at any other time had voted for a Republican. We're making inroads there. We're just not getting any help from the press and the media, so we have to do it on our own.
Yeah.
So there's good, there's bad, and there's ugly, and we have to be able to take on all of them, or we'll lose.
Yeah. Well, and plus the other upside you mentioned before was the federal appointees, to the judgeships. That looks like it's going to go well for us as well, and that's the gift that keeps on giving, right?
For lifetime appointments,
yeah.
We've got the Supreme Court right now, and no doubt in my mind, Trump's going to get one, possibly two, picks. Not maybe one in the remainder of his 2 years of this term, but he'll definitely get another one. If not another one, the second one in the fourth year. I was talking with Grover Norquist on my show. He said, look, don't discount the fact that Thomas, who is getting up there in age, may retire during a Trump administration, allowing another conservative appointment to replace him. Don't think that might not happen because, still volatile for 2020 right now. You never know what's going to happen. And it's quite possible that Thomas is not going to want to take a chance and see a Democrat win the election and then him retire in the next 4 years. He's got to look out 6 years to make that decision.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised if you see Thomas make that call in the next 24 months to allow Trump to appoint him, to replace him with a very conservative justice.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court huge and the court's huge in the Senate. From gun owner standpoint, our agenda is just going to stall for a little while, and we're going to have to hear the screaming and yelling, but you're only going to hear it and watch it if you turn it on. My advice is turn it off.
There you go.
Just shut it off.
That's right. Just listen to the Armed American Radio Show and the Home Defense
Show.
Everything
you need.
That's right. All right. Hey,
we'll make you laugh, too.
Mark, you have been awesome, as always. One more time, how can they get a hold of Armed American Radio?
Tweet me at AARMark or email mark@armedamericanradio.org. I read and answer as many of them as I can get to. And armedamericanradio.com for a list of stations around the country, 200 and growing in hundreds of cities around the nation.
Awesome. Very awesome. Mark, thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show.
Anytime, brother. You know it. Thanks. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, all right, folks, we got another 2-minute break here. While we are away, go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tackle, then elitefirearms.us. When we come back, I will give you the wrap-up, and I'll tell you what I really think. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
And now it's time for our Armed American Report. What do you have, Skip?
All of us here at Frontlines of Freedom want our listeners to get trained and get armed in that order. We fully support the right to keep and bear arms for all law-abiding families, and we encourage you to find out about the laws governing use of deadly force in your state and follow them to the letter. And of course, don't forget to follow the rules of safety and common sense whenever you're carrying a firearm to protect the ones you love. What's the story this week, Roland?
About 50 students and adults rallied outside a high school in Nova Scotia, Canada on Tuesday, calling for an end to bullying after a teen with cerebral palsy was used as a human bridge to cross a stream earlier this month. Brett Corbett, of 14, of Glace Bay, was seen bullying and taunted in a video that went viral. Students hurled profanities at the teen and called on him to lay face down in the creek outside Glace Bay High School. It was freezing, and no one tried to help me, Brett told the Global News. Signs at Tuesday's rally read, "Step up so others don't get stepped on," and "Stop bullying, we stand with Brett." Boxer Ryan Rozicki from Sydney, Nova Scotia, made an appearance at the rally. He said he could relate to how Brett was mistreated. Quote, "I was a victim myself, and I definitely changed my life, and I ended up making the most of it," Rozicki said. "It's just not right." Rally organizer Dion Dermody said she had firsthand experience working with people who have cerebral palsy. Quote, "To see Brett hurt like that really pulled at my heart," she told CBC.
Thanks, Roland. Now, you may have noticed that this article is a departure from how we usually do the Armed American Report. Usually, the Armed American is attacked and he uses his superior attitude, skills, and plan to come out on top. But that didn't happen here. Why? Because the people who were supposed to be helping this young man didn't step up. Where were the protectors and the defenders? There have always been bullies, and there will always be bullies. That's a given. But something has changed in our society over the last 50 years. There aren't as many protectors as there used to be. When I was a kid going to grade school back in the 60s, there were bullies, yes, but there were also protectors. You know, those older or bigger kids who stood up to the bullies and made them stop. And the bullies did stop, or else they got their butt kicked. And that, folks, is how evil is kept in check. Here's what I found throughout life. The world is just a giant playground where bullies roam and seek whom they may devour, and that's okay so long as there are good guys with strength and courage to stand up and slay the Goliaths of the world. But what happens when the strong no longer protect the weak? What happens when bullies go unchecked? When bullies on the playground, like the ones in this story, are not held accountable, then they grow up to do even more damage to society. And I'm reminded of the famous quote of Sir Edmund Burke. All evil needs to flourish is for good people to do nothing. And that's why I want all my fellow military brothers and sisters to carry often, carry safely, carry legally, and to protect and defend the weakest members of our society, like this 14-year-old boy with cerebral palsy. Think about it this way. What kind of world do you want? You only have two choices, a world run by bullies or a world run by the good, the strong, and the brave. Think about it, veterans, and then go do the right thing. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. Mark Walters. I tell you, that guy has been a good friend to me for a lot of years. Boy, ever since he was on the air. When I started the Second Amendment March, I became friends with him right out of the box and was on his show several times. And boy, Mark was really good at covering and supporting the Second Amendment March when we were in Washington, D.C. back in, 2010. So, thanks again to Mark Walters for being on the show. Now, last week, we spoke with Joel Fulton from Freedom Firearms in Battle Creek, and he told us what's going to happen in Michigan. And you know what? Mark Walters said the same thing about Michigan, and then he pretty much gave us kind of a bleak picture for the rest of the country. And he even used the same words. Joel Fulton and Mark Walters did not compare notes. They did not collaborate on this. They both independently made the same analysis. Joel for Michigan and Mark Walters for the rest of the U.S. It's going to be tough for the next 2 years. You're going to be tempted to get discouraged. You're going to get scared. You're going to think the sky's falling. Well, you know what? The sky is not falling. It's going to be rough for a while. So just buckle up, wear a helmet, and get ready. I mean, look at it this way. If you get in a fight with somebody, you're not Billy Jack, okay? You're not going to come out of it unscathed. We're probably more like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. We're going to take a beating. Because these Democrats, they're a formidable adversary. They don't follow the rules. They don't like the rules. They don't even acknowledge that the rules apply to them. They have zero respect for the Second Amendment, for the Bill of Rights, for the Constitution in general. So don't be surprised when they break the law, when they violate the Constitution, when they spit on the American public and all of our rights. Don't be surprised by that. I mean, we've seen what they can do. We've seen what they did under Obama. We survived Bill Clinton, and then we survived 8 years of Obama, and now we will survive this next 2 years with Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters in the House of Representatives. We'll get through it. We just have to be more tenacious. We have to be tougher. We have to be more vocal. We've seen what the Democrats can do. I mean, they are not afraid of violence. There is going to be violence. There's going to be more of these Antifa riots. My 3-week vacation to Portland, Oregon, was canceled because of a family emergency. It was sad, but I tell you, I didn't really want to bring my wife and 3 kids to Portland, Oregon right now because of everything that's going on there. It is a liberal slugfest over there, and I just didn't feel right about it. Get ready for more of that. Folks, if you need something to do, I was joking a little bit when I said, hey, listen to the Home Defense Show, listen to Armed American Radio. Yeah, you should be doing that anyways. But don't let the 24-hour news cycle tear you down and wear you out, because they will. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to discourage you. Say, oh, the sky is falling. It's all hopeless. It's not all hopeless. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. Now is the time when you fight harder than you've ever fought before. When you're down, that's when you get tough. You get tough, you get mean, and you do what you got to do to survive. If you don't have your CPL yet, you better get it. Get your concealed pistol license. That will enlarge our voting block. You got to do that. Get more training. Get politically involved. I know it sounds dirty, and politics is just, it's like a cesspool. I know that. But get involved. If you don't, they will. Democrats are usurpers of all things left unattended. If you don't take charge, they will take charge. Make them fight for it. Well, tomorrow morning I'll be out there doing my best to put down Bambi. All that frustration that I feel over the last election, I'm taking it out in the woods with me. And hey, some poor innocent fuzzy animal is gonna die. That's the way I do it. And I think you should do it that way too. Well, okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Until next week, remember, your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember, God, family, country, in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!